Well, as you can probably tell, we are not in our usual studio environs. We are at the Lindsay Wildlife Museum in Walnut Creek. Dawn Manley is with us right now, and she has a beautiful, it's a red-tailed hawk, is that right? Correct. It's a beautiful animal. You know, when you see these things up close, you realize how subtle the colors are.
They have many different layers of color, and they have 8,000 feathers on their body, all performing different functions and tasks, and they're gorgeous. Very soft.
Did you ever wonder who's the one who counted the feathers the first time?
Some poor graduate student.
I see. You know, it's interesting, because this bird is in captivity, it requires a certain amount of maintenance, right? For example, you're mentioning things you have to do with the claws.
So usually about every 4 months, depending on the bird, we actually have to trim their nails, and we have to trim their beaks. It's made out of the same thing that our nails are made out of, keratin. So what we do is we take some clippers and we clip them down, file them down, and then we also have to check, you know, under their wings and their legs and their equipment. They're wearing leather equipment around their ankles, and we have to make sure that all of that is working properly.
Okay, now trimming the beak would be a real challenge, I would think.
Well, so what we do is
I hate that personally.
Yeah, we have to have their eyes covered, and we just trim the tip of it, just like, you know, we do the nails. And they tolerate it. They don't exactly enjoy it, but yeah, they tolerate it.
Well, birds don't change expression that much, or do they?
No, not really. I mean, when this bird would be stressed, usually what she'd do is start open mouth breathing. You know, opening her mouth, and you could see her breathing heavily. Yeah. And the way they stand, if her wings were spread really far and she was jumping around, she would be, you know, stressed. And those are all things that it's my job to look for. You know.
Yeah. You know, all raptors look like they just want to pull out my eyeball. You know, they have that intense look about them.
They have that intense look, and that's for a reason. They actually can see extremely far in the wild. You know, they can see a mouse running on the field, you know, from way up in a telephone pole or a light pole. Yeah. And so those eyes are definitely built for staring you right through your eyeballs.
Yeah, right. When we see these animals, as you point out, a high place is just sitting there looking, surveying fields and things of that nature. And there's more of these now. I see more of these now than I used to see. Is there a reason for that?
Well, the thing about red tails is that they're what you call generalists, and that means that they can eat a wide variety of foods and live in a wide variety of environments. And so they do well, you know, under different pressures, whereas some species of raptor don't. They can only eat a very specific type of food, live in a very specific environment. So because they're so well adapted, they're very successful.
So they're more hardy birds, in other words, is that right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Stronger, hardy birds, yeah. Now, you started here as a volunteer, which I found that very interesting. You started as a volunteer and then said, you know what, I'm going to get a job here, and that's how you did it.
Yeah, I was determined to get a job here, and because the staff is so small, there wasn't a lot of openings, and so I thought, well, the next best thing I can do is get them to see my face every day by becoming a volunteer. A lot of our staff members actually started out that way. And that's the best way, especially with a staff so small. And so I worked my way up the ranks, got to know the animal keeper staff, made friends with them, and
here you are. That's the story.
6 years later.
Okay. Well, you're involved with more than just the birds, then.
Yeah, I work with all the animals in our collection. That includes mammals, reptiles, non-raptor birds, amphibians, anything native to California.
Do you have any aversion to working with any particular kind of animal?
I don't. You know, I didn't have a lot of experience working with tarantulas when I first started.
I'm glad to hear that, Dawn.
I had to learn slowly, you know, how to work with them. And
tarantulas are not my favorite.
Well, and if you see arachnophobia too many times, it doesn't help.
I see. But you are responsible for what happens with them also.
I am. I'm responsible for actually the feeding and the care and the, you know, the enclosures of all the animals in the collection. And so I have to make sure that I'm looking at all of them and I know what's going on with every single one of them every day. Yeah. So
well, you're doing a heck of a job, and this beautiful bird looks very healthy. Nice to see you, Dawn.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Dawn Manley's been our guest. We're at the Lindsay Wildlife Museum in Walnut Creek.